Salah Dubois sat in the back of the city bus, staring out the window without really seeing the blur of the urban landscape. 3 years. 3 years of her life thrown away behind bars for a crime she never committed. Her fingers tightly gripped an old, worn tote bag containing her few remaining possessions, all that was left of her former life. She was 28 years old, facing an empty future. No job, a ruined reputation, and friends who had long since drifted away. Only one person had believed in her until the very end. Her father, Elias Dubois, who had shown up for every single visit. His once grizzled hair had turned almost pure white over those years. His wrinkles had deepened, but his gaze remained firm and serene. "My girl, I know you're innocent. I will find the real culprit. I promise you." These words had kept her warm during the cold nights in the fictionalized Zelda State Penitentiary in Georgia, back when it felt like her whole world had completely collapsed. The bus came to a stop on a familiar street. Selah got off and took a deep breath of the spring air. It was a beautiful day in May. The trees were lush and fresh, and the sky was clear. She started walking toward her childhood home, feeling her heart pound faster and faster in her chest. Soon, she would see her father, hug him, and together they would begin to put an end to this long nightmare. But the house looked different. The picket fence was painted a different color, and unfamiliar flowers bloomed in the garden beds. Selah frowned, but figured her father might have wanted a change. She walked up the porch steps and rang the doorbell. A few seconds of silence passed, and then she heard footsteps. The door opened, and there stood her stepmother, Zola. She was a woman in her mid-40s with an impeccable hairstyle and a cold, calculating look. Zola had married her father 7 years ago, just 2 years after Selah's mother passed away. They had never gotten along. Zola was ambitious and always looking for an angle, and Selah had sensed it from day one. "Well, look who it is," Zola said, eyeing Selah up and down with clear disdain. "Free at last, huh?" "Where's Dad?" Selah asked, trying to look over the woman's shoulder into the house. Zola crossed her arms and offered a malicious smile, a smile that sent a chill down Selah's spine. "We buried him a year ago. This house is mine now," she said with poisonous satisfaction. The world seemed to wobble beneath Selah's feet. She grabbed the doorframe, feeling her legs give out. "What? What are you talking about?" "Your dad passed away a year ago. There was a terrible fire at the cabin up in the Appalachians. The fire was so bad, they couldn't even identify the body." Zola seemed to relish every single word. "We laid him to rest as best we could. So go on your way. This house belongs to me now. He changed the will before he died." "You're lying." Selah felt rage mixing with desperation. "My father was still writing to me a year ago. He came to see me in prison." Zola let out a mocking laugh. "Can you count? He's been dead for a year, and you were locked up tight, out of the loop. Such a shame. You couldn't even make the funeral. But then again, they don't exactly let convicts out for that, do they?" Selah was speechless. Her father's last letter had arrived 2 years ago. Then silence. She had thought he was sick or just busy. And now, he was dead. Dead and burned. And no one had even bothered to tell her. "Get out of here," Zola ordered, slamming the door shut in her face. Selah stood frozen on the porch, staring at the closed door. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she barely felt them. Her father was gone. The only one who had believed in her, the only one who had promised to find the truth, was no longer there. She was too late. She couldn't say goodbye. She couldn't tell him how much she loved him, or thank him for his unwavering faith. She turned and slowly walked down the steps. Her feet moved on autopilot, carrying her away from that house, away from the cruel smile of her stepmother. She wandered aimlessly through the streets until she found herself in front of a small, historically black church on the edge of town. Next to it was a cemetery. "I have to find his grave," she thought, wiping her tears. "I just need to stand next to him for a moment. Ask for his forgiveness for not being there in his final moments." She pushed open the old wrought iron gates of the cemetery. Rows of crosses and headstones stretched out before her. Somewhere here, her father rested. Selah walked among the graves, reading the names, but she couldn't find a single one with the surname Dubois. She checked the older section, then the new one. Nothing. "Who are you looking for, girl?" a rough voice asked behind her. Selah spun around. An older man, around 70, with a faded jacket and worn boots, leaned on a rake. He was the groundskeeper. "My father's grave, Elias Dubois. He was buried about a year ago." The man looked at her carefully, then shook his head. "Don't bother looking, daughter. That grave doesn't exist," he said in a low voice, looking around furtively. "But I do have something he asked me to give you." He led her to a small shed tucked away under some old magnolia trees. He pulled out an envelope. Selah took it with trembling hands. Her heart leaped. The handwriting was her father's. She would recognize that script among 1,000. The envelope was carefully addressed to Selah Dubois, open only in person. Selah stood in the middle of the cemetery with the envelope in her hands, unable to believe what she was seeing. It was her father's hand. His own hand had traced those lines, but how? Zola had said he was dead. "Where did you get this?" she asked, her voice shaking. The groundskeeper looked around again, as if afraid of being overheard. "Elias came to see me a little over a year ago, paid me well, asked for discretion, and told me to give you this envelope when you came back. Said you were going away for a long time, but that you'd come home someday. I didn't ask questions. He was a serious, reliable man. I've known him for years." "And then he disappeared?" "Yes. I don't know where he went, but he gave me his word and I keep my promises." "More than a year ago? But they told me he died a year ago." "I don't know what they told you, girl," the old man replied, shaking his head. "All I know is there's no grave with the Dubois name in this cemetery. I checked it several times, and he asked me to give you this envelope as soon as you returned." Selah examined the envelope in her fingers. It was sealed with red wax. Her father always had a weakness for those kinds of old-fashioned things. Something small and metallic rattled inside. "Thank you," she whispered. The man nodded and walked away, leaving her alone. Selah sat down on a bench next to the chapel and carefully broke the seal. Inside was a folded sheet of paper and a small key. She unfolded the letter and began to read. The letters blurred through her tears, but she forced herself to focus. "Selah, my dearest girl, if you are reading this letter, it means you have recovered your freedom, and I couldn't be there to meet you myself. Forgive me for what you are about to read, but I had no other choice. I paid the groundskeeper well to keep silent and give you this envelope. I dated it 3 days before my planned death, just to be safe. This key belongs to a safety deposit box at the downtown Federal Bank, in your name. Box number 247 at the Central Avenue branch. You will find the answers there. Be careful. You were framed by the same people who are trying to eliminate me. Only trust your Uncle Marcus, my brother. He knows everything and will help you. I love you, Dad." Selah read the letter 3 times. Her heart hammered against her chest. The buzzing in her ears was deafening. Tears made it hard to see. Her father was alive? Or was this a letter written before his death? A farewell. And what did he mean by my planned death? What was this trap? She squeezed the key in her fist. The metal felt warm from the heat of her hand. She had to go to the bank. She had to go now. She got up from the bench and almost ran out of the cemetery. The downtown Federal Bank on Central Avenue closed at 6 o'clock. It was 4 in the afternoon. She still had time. Selah hailed a taxi, and 20 minutes later, she crossed the marble lobby of the bank. Her simple clothes, the same ones she had worn leaving prison, contrasted with the elegant suits of the clients, but she didn't care. "Good afternoon. I need to access a safety deposit box," she told the teller, a young woman in a dark suit. "Box number and ID, please." Selah handed over the key and her driver's license. The employee checked the system and nodded. "Box number 247, registered in your name. Please follow me." Her father had prepared everything in advance. Selah followed her into the vault. Rows of metallic compartments lined both sides. The employee opened one with a key and pulled out a steel box. "You can use the private viewing room to examine the contents," she instructed, pointing to a small room with a table and a chair. Sela went in, closed the door, and placed the box on the table. Her hands trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside was another envelope, thicker than the first, and a thick wad of bills secured with a rubber band. She took the envelope and opened it. "Sela, if you are reading this, it means I was right. You were framed by the same people who are trying to eliminate me. There is no grave because I am still alive. I found out they were watching me, that something serious was being planned. While you were in prison, I gathered evidence and realized the scale of the conspiracy. But they are more powerful and dangerous than I ever imagined. I had to fake my own death to protect us and buy time to investigate. I burned our cabin in the mountains. I put the body of an unidentified homeless man from the city morgue in the fire. Your Uncle Marcus helped me set up everything. He used to work for the police and still has contacts. Everything looked real, that I had died. Zola collected the insurance, $1 million, and inherited the house as planned. That diverted suspicion and allowed me to move freely. The people responsible for your conviction are my wife, Zola, and Vance Rollins. Together, they embezzled $10 million from our accounting firm and framed you. Since you were the comptroller and had access to the accounts, you were the perfect scapegoat. They falsified documents so that every single piece of evidence pointed to you. But there's more. Behind them is a high-ranking official in the City Hall, Councilman Quentin Zavala, the Deputy Mayor of Urban Planning. He is covering up a massive network of bribes from developers in exchange for illegal permits to build in protected zones. Rollins was his intermediary. Go see your Uncle Marcus. He moved to Market Street, number 12, apartment 5. He will know what to do and will take you to me. The envelope contains $100,000 for your first days. Be cautious. Don't tell anyone about this letter. They could be watching you. I believe in you, my girl. We will see each other very soon. Dad. Sela finished reading and sat motionless for a few seconds. Her father was alive. Alive! Joy mixed with rage and shock. Zola and Rollins. They had betrayed her, stolen her life, and her father had been forced to fake his death to protect her. She gripped the wad of bills, $100,000. She put the cash and the letters into her tote bag and left the bank. The evening was falling, and the sky was darkening. She had to get to her Uncle Marcus as soon as possible. Market Street was on the other side of the city. Sela sat on the bus, clutching the bag with the money and the letters. She looked out the window, but saw nothing. She was lost in thought. Her father was alive. That meant there was a chance to finally get justice. But how? Zola and Rollins were influential people, and behind them was the deputy mayor. Against her alone, they had won easily. But now, she wasn't alone. She had her father and her Uncle Marcus by her side. Marcus Dubois was her father's younger brother. He was 53 years old, had served in the Atlanta Police Department for over 20 years, and was now retired. Sela remembered him as a good, honest man who always showed up at family celebrations with a gift and a joke. If her father trusted him, Uncle Marcus was a reliable ally. The bus stopped near a park. Sela got off and walked down a quiet street lined with 5-story apartment buildings. Number 12 turned out to be a typical apartment block from the 1960s with chipping paint on the facade. She climbed the stairs to the second floor and knocked on the door of apartment 5. The door opened almost instantly. Standing in the doorway was Uncle Marcus, a sturdy man with very short graying hair and watchful, steely gray eyes. He looked at her for a few seconds and his expression softened. "Sela," he said in a low voice, "get in here, quick." She stepped inside, and he bolted the door with all the locks. The apartment was small, but cozy, shelves full of books, an old sofa, photos on the walls. "Did you get the letter?" he asked, seating her on the sofa. Yes, Dad wrote that you know everything and that I should come to see you. Marcus nodded